Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the massive crystal chamber and felt his stomach turn. The Galactic Council building rose high above him like a mountain made of glass and light. Every surface sparkled with colors that hurt human eyes to look at directly. The alien delegates moved through the space like they owned it, which they did. For 3 years now, Jake had walked these halls as Earth's ambassador. 3 years of bowing his head and saying sorry for things humans had never done. 3 years of watching alien faces twist with disgust whenever he spoke. 3 years of pretending that humanity deserved to be treated like children who had broken something valuable. The reptilian Zephyrians were the worst. Their leader Cossack would sit on his floating throne and flick his forked tongue at Jake like he was tasting something rotten. The Zephyrians had scales that changed color based on their mood, and whenever humans were mentioned, those scales turned the deep red of anger mixed with the yellow of contempt. Then there were the Valdorians. They looked like ghosts made of light, floating and shifting like smoke. They spoke in voices that sounded like wind chimes, but their words cut deeper than any blade. They had a way of making every human achievement sound like a lucky accident. Every human request sound like begging. Jake adjusted his tie and walked toward the speaking platform. His dress uniform was pressed and perfect, just like the diplomats back on Earth had taught him. Look professional, they said. Show them we can be civilized, they said. Never let them see you angry, they said. Lisa Barnes watched from the observation deck above. She wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic security, but everyone knew she was really military. Her job was to keep Jake safe, but there was not much she could do if the Council decided humans were no longer welcome. The aliens had weapons that could turn a person into dust, and shields that could stop any human weapon. Captain Roy Henderson sat beside Lisa, his fingers drumming on the metal railing. Roy commanded the Earth Defense Force ship that had brought them here, a vessel that looked like a toy next to the massive alien cruisers parked outside. He had been a soldier for 20 years, and watching Jake bow and scrape to these creatures made his blood boil. Today we present humanity's latest gift to the Council, Jake began, his voice carrying across the chamber through alien technology he did not understand. Our scientists have developed a new medical treatment that can cure the bone plague that has been killing millions across the galaxy. The alien delegates barely looked up from their floating data screens. The Zephyrians made hissing sounds that Jake had learned meant they were annoyed. The Valdorians pulsed with dim light, which was their way of showing boredom. Jake continued speaking, explaining how human doctors had worked for years to find this cure. He told them about the families who had lost loved ones to the plague, about the children who would now live because of this medicine. He spoke with passion and hope, believing that surely this time the Council would see that humans were trying to help. Cossack rose from his throne, his scales shifting to that familiar red and yellow pattern. The Council acknowledges this offering from the humans, he said, his voice like gravel in a blender. However, we must discuss the cost of allowing humans to develop such technology without proper oversight. Jake felt his heart sink. This was how it always went. Humans would offer help, and the Council would find a way to make it seem like humanity owed them something for the privilege. The Council has determined that Earth's outer colonies used excessive resources during the development of this cure. Cossack continued. As compensation, humanity will surrender 11 of its 12 colonies to Council administration. You may keep your homeworld and 1 additional colony of our choosing. The chamber fell silent. Lisa's hand moved to her weapon, but she knew it was useless. Roy's drumming stopped, and his knuckles turned white as he gripped the railing. Jake stood frozen at the podium. 11 colonies meant millions of humans who would lose their homes, families torn apart, lives destroyed. All because humanity had dared to save alien lives without asking permission first. Furthermore, Cossack added, his tongue flicking out to taste Jake's shock, humanity will accept permanent junior status within the Council. You will have no vote on matters affecting your species. You will submit all future technological developments for approval before implementation. You will pay tribute of 30% of your gross planetary product to the Council treasury. The other alien delegates made sounds of approval. The Valdorians chimed like bells, while the insectoid Thraxions clicked their mandibles, and what Jake had learned was their version of applause. Jake forced himself to speak. "Honored Council, surely there must be some mistake. We offer this cure freely, asking nothing in return. Our colonies are home to peaceful families who have never harmed. Are you questioning the Council's wisdom?" Kosek interrupted, his scales now burning bright red. "Are you suggesting that humans know better than the combined intelligence of 17 advanced species?" "No, of course not," Jake said quickly. "I merely hope to explain. Explanation is not required." The Valdorian representative spoke, her voice like silver bells filled with poison. "Compliance is required. You have 7 standard days to begin the colony transfers. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force." Jake looked up at Lisa and Roy. Lisa's face was stone, but her eyes burned with fury. Roy looked like he might jump down from the observation deck and start a fight he could never win. "The council session is concluded," Kosek announced. "The human delegation will remain for processing of the compliance documents." As the alien delegates filed out, Jake remained at the podium. His hands shook slightly as he gripped the edges of the speaking platform. 3 years of this. 3 years of giving everything and getting nothing but demands for more. Lisa and Roy joined him on the chamber floor. None of them spoke as they walked toward the exit. What was there to say? They had tried diplomacy, and it had failed again. Outside the chamber, Jake stopped and looked back at the crystal walls. Somewhere in his mind, a small voice whispered that maybe there was another way. Maybe humanity had been playing the wrong game all along, but that voice was dangerous. That voice led to thoughts that diplomats were not supposed to have. That voice led to solutions that civilized people did not consider. Jake pushed the voice down and followed his security team toward their ship. Tomorrow he would send the bad news to Earth. Tomorrow he would watch humanity lose everything it had built among the stars. Tonight he would try not to think about what humans might do if they ever stopped being polite. Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, staring at documents that made his hands shake. 2 weeks had passed since the Council's latest demands, and the intelligence reports on his desk painted a picture that made his stomach turn. The Valdorians had been lying. While demanding Earth submission and surrender of colonies, they had already been secretly attacking human settlements. The reports showed clear evidence of Valdorian energy signatures at 3 colony sites that had gone dark in the past month. Lisa Barnes entered without knocking, her face grim. She carried a data pad that glowed with urgent red markers. "Jake, you need to see this now." Jake looked up from the reports. Lisa's usual calm demeanor had cracked. In 3 years of working together, he had never seen her look so shaken. "What is it?" Jake asked, though part of him already knew he did not want to hear the answer. "Colony 7, Colony 12, and the mining station at Kepler 442, Lisa said, her voice tight. "They're gone. Not just communication dark. Gone. No life signs, no structures, no trace that humans were ever there." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. How many people? Colony 7 had 50,000. Colony 12 had 80,000. The mining station had 12,000 workers and their families. Lisa's voice broke slightly. "Jake, that's children, families, people who never hurt anyone." The data pad in Lisa's hands showed satellite images of empty space where thriving human settlements had been just weeks ago. The images were time-stamped, showing the colony's final moments. Bright flashes of alien energy weapons, then nothing. "The Council did this while demanding we give up our other colonies peacefully," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They were killing our people while I was in their chamber offering them medical cures." Lisa nodded. "It gets worse. We intercepted communications between the Valdorians and Zephyrians. They're calling it a population reduction test to see if humans would fight back or just accept it." Jake stood and walked to the small window in his quarters. Outside, stars moved slowly past as the New Horizon traveled through space. Somewhere out there, human families were sleeping peacefully, trusting that their ambassador would keep them safe. "We need to contact Earth Command immediately," Jake said. The other colonies need to be warned. I already tried, Lisa replied. Long-range communications are being jammed. The Council is blocking all signals to Earth. We're cut off. Jake turned back to face her. Then we go back to Earth, we leave now, and warn them ourselves. Lisa shook her head. Roy tried to plot a course home an hour ago. Our navigation system has been locked by Council override. We can't leave this sector without their permission. The truth hit Jake like a physical blow. They were trapped. The Council had isolated them, cut them off from Earth, and was systematically destroying human colonies while keeping the ambassador busy with diplomatic games. How long do we have? Jake asked. Lisa activated her datapad again, showing him a new document. According to the intercepts, the Council plans to vote tomorrow on something called the Human Relocation Initiative. They're going to order all humans to report to processing centers for resettlement to more suitable worlds. Jake read the document over her shoulder. The language was diplomatic, but the meaning was clear. Concentration camps, work camps, the systematic removal of humanity from the galaxy. 3 billion people, Jake said quietly. They want to relocate 3 billion people. Jake, Lisa said, her voice urgent. That's not the worst part. Keep reading. Jake's eyes moved down the page. The document outlined the processing procedures for human relocation. Medical examinations, psychological evaluations, genetic screening, population reduction protocols for unsuitable specimens. They're not planning to relocate anyone, Jake said, his voice becoming deadly quiet. They're planning to kill us. All Lisa nodded. The vote is scheduled for tomorrow. The Council expects unanimous approval. After that, they'll give Earth 72 hours to begin voluntary compliance before they start forced collection. Jake set the datapad down with careful precision. His diplomatic training had taught him to control his emotions, to think before acting, to find peaceful solutions to every problem. But those lessons had been based on the assumption that the other side wanted peace too. Contact Captain Henderson, Jake said. Tell him to meet us in the briefing room in 10 minutes. What are you going to tell him? Lisa asked. Jake looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that had never been there before. Something cold and sharp and utterly without mercy. I'm going to tell him that the diplomatic mission is over, Jake said. I'm going to tell him that we tried to play by their rules and they responded by planning genocide. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Jake, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that for 3 years, we've been so focused on proving we're civilized that we forgot why civilization exists in the first place, Jake said. It exists to protect the people we care about. When civilization fails to do that, it's time to try something else. 10 minutes later, the 3 humans sat in the New Horizons small briefing room. Roy Henderson listened in silence as Jake explained the situation. The captain's face grew darker with each detail. So let me make sure. I understand, Roy said when Jake finished. The Council has been systematically murdering human colonists while pretending to negotiate with us. They've cut off our communications with Earth. They've locked down our navigation so we can't warn anyone. And tomorrow they're going to vote? To exterminate the entire human species. That's correct, Jake said. Roy leaned back in his chair. And our orders from Earth Command are to maintain diplomatic relations at all costs. Yes, even if it means letting them kill every human in the galaxy, Jake nodded. Those are our orders. Roy was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Well, Jake, I have some good news and some bad news. What's the bad news? Lisa asked. The bad news is that our communications array just suffered a mysterious malfunction, Roy said. We can't receive any more orders from Earth Command. Jake raised an eyebrow. And the good news? The good news is that without orders constraining us, we're free to use our own judgment about how to handle this situation. Lisa looked between the 2 men. What are you suggesting? Roy stood and walked to the briefing room's small viewport. I'm suggesting that maybe it's time the galaxy learned something about humans that we've been keeping secret. Which is? Jake asked. That we're not actually very nice people when you threaten our families, Roy said. We've just been pretending to be civilized because we thought it was the right thing to do. Jake felt that dangerous voice in his head getting louder. The voice that said diplomacy was for people who had the luxury of assuming their enemies were rational. The voice that said some problems could not be solved with words. What do you need from me? Jake asked. Roy turned back to face him. I need you to request an emergency session with the council. Tell them humanity has an important announcement to make before they vote. What kind of announcement? The kind that explains why threatening human children is the last mistake they'll ever make, Roy said. Jake nodded slowly. For 3 years he had been the perfect diplomat. Patient, reasonable, willing to compromise. But diplomacy was a tool, not a religion. And when one tool failed, you picked up another. Contact the council, Jake said. Tell them Ambassador Morrison requests an emergency session. Tell them humanity is ready to discuss new terms. Lisa looked at both men. Are you sure about this? Once we cross this line, there's no going back. Jake thought about the empty space where Colony 7 used to be. He thought about the children who would never grow up, the families who would never be reunited, the 3 billion people on Earth who were counting on him to keep them safe. There's already no going back, Jake said. They made sure of that. When they decided to commit genocide, the diplomatic phase was over. Tomorrow the galaxy would meet the humans they had never seen before. The council chamber buzzed with the sound of alien voices as delegates filed in for the emergency session. Cossack settled onto his floating throne with visible amusement, his scales shifting to the bright yellow of anticipation mixed with the green of superiority. The humans have requested emergency time before our vote, he announced to the assembled delegates. Perhaps they wish to negotiate better terms for their processing. The Valdorian representative, a being of shifting light, called Synthesis, pulsed with what humans had learned was laughter. How thoughtful of them to spare us the trouble of hunting them down. The insectoid Thraxians clicked their mandibles in agreement. The jellyfish-like Aquarians rippled with approval. 17 different species, all united in their contempt. For humanity, all confident in their superiority, the chamber's massive doors opened and Jake Morrison entered. But something had changed. Gone was the pressed diplomatic uniform and the careful, apologetic posture. Instead, he wore the black dress uniform of Earth's military, complete with ribbons and medals that most aliens had never seen before. His bearing was different, too. Where once he had walked with the careful steps of someone afraid to give offense, now he moved with the confident stride of a predator. His shoulders were straight, his chin up, his eyes cold and calculating. Behind him came Lisa Barnes and Roy Henderson, also in military dress. But they were not alone. 12 other humans followed them, all wearing the same black uniforms, all carrying themselves with the same dangerous confidence. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. This was not the submissive human delegation they were used to seeing. These humans looked like soldiers, and soldiers meant trouble. Jake walked to the center of the chamber and stood at the speaking platform. He did not bow. He did not apologize for the interruption. He simply stood there, silent and waiting until the alien chatter died down. Honored Council, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly across the vast space without any trace of the deference that had marked his previous speeches. For 3 years I have stood before you as Earth's ambassador. For 3 years I have played by your rules, followed your customs, and accepted your judgments. The silence in the chamber was complete. Even the Aquarians had stopped their constant, rippling motion. I have offered you our technology, our resources, our friendship, Jake continued. In return, you have demanded our submission, our colonies, and our freedom. I accepted these demands because I believed in the power of diplomacy, in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. Cossack leaned forward on his throne. Yes, we know all this. What is your point, human? Jake's expression did not change. My point is that you made a fundamental error in judgment. You mistook our civility for weakness. You confused our desire for peace with an inability to wage war. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The Valdorian Synthesis pulsed with indignation. You dare threaten this council? You are primitives with stolen technology. Jake smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Stolen technology? Is that what you call it when we improve upon your designs? When we take your weapons and make them more efficient? When we study your ships and build better ones? The chamber erupted in angry alien voices. The Thraxians chittered with rage. The Zephyrians hissed. The Aquarians frothed with agitation. Jake waited for the noise to die down, then continued. You have made certain assumptions about humanity based on our behavior in this chamber. You assume we are weak because we sought peace. You assume we are helpless because we offered cooperation instead of conquest. He paused, letting his words sink in. But you see, there is something you do not understand about humans. We are not naturally peaceful. We are not inherently cooperative. We are predators who learn to work together, and we chose to be civilized because we thought it was better for everyone. The alien delegates were listening now, their anger replaced by something that might have been concern. However, Jake said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber, civilization is not our default state, it is a choice we make every day. And when that choice fails to protect the people we care about, we stop making it. Roy Henderson stepped forward. Ambassador Morrison, I have urgent communications from Earth Command. Jake nodded without taking his eyes off the assembled aliens. Proceed, Captain. Admiral Patricia Cole reports that the Human Defense Fleet has achieved optimal positioning around all major Council worlds, Roy announced, his voice carrying the crisp authority of a military officer. Operation Checkmate is complete. All objectives have been secured. The chamber fell silent. The implications of Roy's words were sinking in, and the aliens did not like what they were hearing. Impossible, Cusack snarled. Our sensors would have detected any human fleet movements. Our early warning systems are perfect. Lisa Barnes laughed, and the sound was sharp and humorless. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. Your early warning systems saw exactly what we programmed them to see. She activated a holographic display that showed the space around the Council's capital world. Suddenly, what had appeared to be empty space was filled with human warships, their stealth systems powering down to reveal their true positions. While you were playing politics, Lisa continued, we were playing war. Every system in this station, every defensive platform in Council space, every ship in your mighty fleets, we have been inside them all. The display shifted to show Council ships throughout the galaxy. One by one, their weapon systems went dark. Their shields failed, their engines stopped. You wanted to see our true nature? Jake asked. Here it is. We are not the grateful subjects you thought we were. We are not the primitive species you could push around. We are the descendants of creatures who hunted mammoths with pointed sticks and conquered a world that was trying to kill us. The Aquarian delegate, a creature called Flowing Tide, rippled with fear. This is madness. You cannot threaten the entire galaxy. We are not threatening anyone, Jake replied calmly. We are simply explaining the new reality. The reality where humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist. Roy stepped forward again. Ambassador, I have additional reports from Admiral Cole. Continue. The evacuation of all human colonies has been completed. Our mobile defense platforms are operational. The Council's attempt to jam our communications has been countered. Earth Command reports ready for Phase 2 of the operation. Jake turned back to the assembled aliens. You see, while you were planning to exterminate my species, we were planning to survive. Every human colony you thought you could destroy at will has been evacuated. Every human you thought you could process through your death camps is now safely out of your reach. The truth was settling over the alien delegates like a cold blanket. They had been outmaneuvered, outhot, and outfought by the species they had dismissed as primitive. Furthermore, Jake continued, we have evidence of your crimes. The murder of Colony 7, Colony 12, and the Kepler 442 mining station. The systematic genocide of human civilians while pretending to negotiate in good faith. He gestured to Lisa, who activated another holographic display. This one showed the intercepted communications between the Valdorians and Zephyrians, their plans for human extermination laid bare for all to see. "The old game is over," Jake announced. "The age of council dominance has ended. Humanity will no longer play the role of grateful subjects begging for scraps from your table." He looked directly at Kasek. "You wanted to know what humans do when you threaten our children. Now, we stop being polite." The chamber was silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. 17 species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries now faced the reality that their reign was over. Jake Morrison, no longer an ambassador but now something far more dangerous, prepared to explain the new rules of the game they had all been forced to play. The Council's security forces moved with practiced efficiency, their energy weapons powering up with high-pitched whines that echoed through the crystal chamber. 30 armed guards in powered armor surrounded the human delegation, their weapons trained on the 14 humans who stood calmly in the center of the room. General Vortex, commander of the Council's elite security force, stepped forward. His race, the Corvani, were known throughout the galaxy as the finest warriors, bred for combat and enhanced with cybernetic implants that made them nearly unstoppable. "Surrender immediately," Vortex commanded, his voice amplified by his suits. "Speakers, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Your ships are no match for our defenses." Jake Morrison looked at the weapons pointed at him and smiled. "General, I think you misunderstand the situation. We are not here to fight you. We are here to educate you." Vortex's targeting systems locked onto Jake's head. "Final warning, human. Surrender or be destroyed." Jake raised his hand, and every human in the chamber activated a small device on their wrist. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Council's technology. The lights went out. Not just dimmed, but completely dark, as if someone had unplugged the entire station from its power source. The emergency lighting failed to activate. The environmental systems stopped humming. The gravity generators flickered, causing several alien delegates to float momentarily before gravity returned. In the darkness, Vortex's powered armor went dead. His weapons powered down, his targeting systems failed, his communications array went silent. Around him, his security force found themselves standing in expensive metal coffins, their technology useless. "You see," Jake's voice said in the darkness, calm and conversational. "While you were teaching us to be polite, we were learning how your technology works. While you were showing us your weapons, we were figuring out how to turn them off." Emergency lighting finally flickered on, casting eerie shadows throughout the chamber. The humans stood exactly where they had been, relaxed and unthreatened, while the alien security forces struggled with equipment that refused to function. Lisa Barnes stepped forward, her voice carrying easily through the silent chamber. 3 years ago, when we first arrived, you scanned our ships. You analyzed our technology. You cataloged our capabilities. What you did not realize is that we were doing the same to you." She gestured to the disabled security forces. "Every weapon you pointed at us, every shield you showed us, every system you used to demonstrate your superiority, we studied it all. We learned how it worked, and more importantly, we learned how to make it stop working." Roy Henderson activated his own device, and suddenly the chamber's main display screens came to life. They showed views of space around dozens of council worlds, revealing the truth that alien sensors had been blind to. Human ships materialized around every major council stronghold. Not the small diplomatic vessels and cargo haulers that the council knew about, but massive warships bristling with weapons that were clearly based on alien technology but appeared to be significantly more advanced. "The Miranda-class destroyer," Roy explained, pointing to one of the ships on the display. "Equipped with enhanced Zephyrian plasma cannons, improved Valdorian shield generators, and our own gravitational manipulation engines, top speed, 30% faster than anything in the Council fleet." He switched to another view showing larger ships. The Patton-class battlecruiser, armed with modified Thraxium particle beams and protected by adaptive armor that learns from each attack. Current count, 247 ships. The alien delegates stared in growing horror at the displays. The humans had not just learned their technology. They had improved it, weaponized it, and built a fleet that made the Council's forces look obsolete. But the real surprise, Jake said, is not the ships. It is what we put inside them. The display changed again, this time showing the interior of a human vessel. Instead of the cramped, utilitarian spaces typical of military ships, these vessels were clearly designed for long-term operations. Hydroponics bays, manufacturing facilities, even schools and hospitals, self-sufficient colony ships, Jake explained. Every human vessel is capable of independent operation for decades. We do not need supply lines or bases. We do not need to go home for repairs or reinforcement. We are, in every sense of the word, a nomadic civilization. Cossack had been silent throughout this demonstration, but now he found his voice. You cannot possibly have built such a fleet in secret. The resources alone would have required the cooperation of multiple species, Jake interrupted. You are correct. Which is why we made friends with some of your enemies. The display shifted to show alien vessels alongside human ships. But these were not Council species. These were the races that the Council had conquered, enslaved, or driven to the edges of the galaxy. The Nexari, whom you destroyed for refusing to pay tribute, Jake said. The Kethani, whom you enslaved for their mining expertise. The Gorvani, whom you exiled for questioning your authority. They all remember what you did to them. Lisa activated another display. They have been helping us for 2 years, providing resources, sharing technology, offering intelligence about Council movements. It turns out that when you spend centuries oppressing people, they are eager to help someone who promises to stop you. The scope of the human operation was becoming clear. This had not been a desperate last-minute plan. This had been a carefully orchestrated campaign, years in the making, involving dozens of species and hundreds of worlds. The Confederation of Free Worlds, Roy announced. 43 species, 218 worlds, all united in their desire to see the Council's tyranny ended. All working together to ensure that no species ever again suffers what you put humanity through. Vortex was struggling with his armor's manual controls, trying to activate his weapons. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such a massive conspiracy. Your intelligence networks detected exactly what we wanted them to detect, Lisa replied. Every report you received, every intercepted communication, every piece of surveillance data, we fed it to you. You have been blind for 2 years, seeing only what we chose to show you. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had not just been outmaneuvered, they had been living in a carefully constructed illusion while their enemies prepared for war. Jake walked closer to the disabled security forces. You can try to restart your weapons if you like. Your technicians are probably working frantically to restore power to your systems, but it will not work. He held up the small device from his wrist. This is not a weapon, it is a key. A key to backdoors we installed in every piece of technology you have shown us over the past 3 years. Every system you demonstrated, every device you used in our presence, every network you allowed us to access, we left ourselves a way back in. The truth was devastating. The Council's entire technological infrastructure had been compromised. Their weapons, their ships, their communications, their defenses, all of it could be controlled by the humans they had dismissed as primitives. The demonstration is over, Jake announced. Your weapons are disabled. Your fleets are neutralized. Your worlds are surrounded. The age of Council dominance has ended. He looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens, seeing fear in their eyes for the first time. Now we can discuss what comes next. And I suggest you listen very carefully, because this is the only offer you will receive. The galaxy's most powerful species had just learned that they were no longer the most powerful. The humans they had tried to destroy had become something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The chamber erupted in chaos as the alien delegates realized the full scope of their situation. The Thraxians chittered in panic while trying to activate emergency communicators that refused to work. The Aquarians frothed and rippled with agitation, their translucent bodies flashing warning colors. The Valdorians pulsed with rapid, angry light as they attempted to contact their homeworlds through networks that no longer responded to their commands. Cossack rose from his throne, his scales cycling through colors that indicated rage, fear, and desperation. This is an act of war against the entire galaxy. We have allies, resources, treaties with 1,000 worlds. Jake Morrison waited patiently for the noise to subside, his expression unchanging. When the chamber finally quieted, he spoke in the same calm, conversational tone he had used throughout the demonstration. You had allies, he corrected. You had resources. You had treaties. Past tense. As of this moment, the Council's authority over galactic affairs is terminated. He gestured to Lisa Barnes, who activated the chamber's displays once more. This time, the screen showed scenes from across the galaxy. Council fleets hanging powerless in space. Planetary defense systems offline. Communication networks dark. Your allies are discovering that their defensive systems have been compromised, Jake continued. Your resources are under our control. Your treaties are void, replaced by new agreements. With the Confederation of Free Worlds, the Valdorian synthesis pulsed with indignant light. You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy. There are laws, protocols, civilized ways of handling disputes. Jake's smile was cold and sharp. Civilized ways? Like secretly murdering human colonies while pretending to negotiate? Like planning the systematic genocide of my species? Like treating entire civilizations as property to be disposed of at will? He walked closer to the alien delegates, his military bearing making him seem larger than his human frame suggested. You taught us about your version of civilization. Now let us teach you about ours. Roy Henderson stepped forward. Admiral Cole reports that Phase 3 is complete. All Council military assets have been secured. Resistance has been minimal. Resistance? Squeaked the Corvani General Vortex, still struggling with his disabled armor. What resistance? Our forces were taken by surprise. Exactly, Roy replied. Your forces were neutralized without significant casualties on either side. We could have destroyed your fleets, but we chose not to. We could have eliminated your leadership, but we chose not to. We could have reduced your worlds to rubble, but we chose not to. Jake nodded. You see, despite what you may think, we are not monsters. We do not wage war for pleasure or conquest. We wage war to protect ourselves, and to ensure that what you